Okay. Hey guys. So, welcome to the stream, and if you've been following along with these locomotion streams more recently, you'll probably have noticed that something's a bit different. That this one I've titled Motion Matching. And that's because Unreal Engine 5 has a couple of built-in plugins that enable motion matching, and I have not had the chance to look at them yet, and I also haven't had the chance to work on this locomotion system in between streams yet. So instead, I figured instead of just copying and pasting, or well, just copying more things over from Lyra, that I'd try to switch things up a bit and do something a bit different, because motion matching is something I'd love to cover on the channel, and I'd love to just check out these plugins, and I thought a stream might be a good place to do that. Now, usually with motion matching, you need longer animation cards with more coverage, more movement. There's a bunch of great talks about it. There's some GDC talks, some other presentations you can find on YouTube that explain it better than I can. But from what I've seen, people have been pretty successful using the motion matching system in Unreal Engine 5 just with regular looping clip animations. So I'm gonna see if we can't figure something out with that. So there are actually a couple of resources, and I will share their links in the live stream chat. they're all in Chinese, so you will have to put them through Google Translate to translate the web pages. I'll go ahead and open those up here. And actually, it looks like these are already the translated links, and the heater for the house just turned on. I'm not sure if it's coming through the stream or not. Seems like it's doing a pretty good job of filtering it out. So, but let me know if for some reason anything is off or bad about the audio. I'm actually using a different microphone for my stream today, one that I have just on my desk, and not the other one I had on the arm that's right here. And I'm trying to, I guess, yeah, that should be in the webcam. Okay. But let me know if the audio sounds terrible, and I'll switch back if I need to. I've had some problems with this one with Zoom, so I'm not sure if it'll have those same issues with streaming on YouTube or not. So, there are these 3 articles from a Chinese website that go over some of the motion matching stuff in Unreal Engine 5. And I was thinking I'd just follow along with these live and talk with you guys and take your input on it as I go. I'm looking at the motion matching stuff for the first time in this stream. So, I think that's about it on, I guess, this sort of intro here. So I'll just go ahead and put these links in the chat for the stream. There's 3 of them, and they should already be translated. And we should be good to go. And just give me just a second here, everyone. I need to check something that I'm not sure if something seems like it's off with my webcam. Okay, I'm back. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay. Alright, so there was just some difficulties on my end. Looked like something weird was going on with it, but that did not seem to be the case. So, okay. So I keep hitting the wrong things in my taskbar. I have the project open here. I'm going to take these resources. I put the links in chat. I'm going to move them over to my second monitor. And I will go ahead and come down to the first step here, which is enabling the motion trajectory plugin. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it is an experimental plugin, but that will probably change in time. And while that reloads, I'll just bring this back over here. And so there's another plugin, the pose search plugin, but I believe I already have that enabled in the project that I've been streaming on. But if you guys want to follow along, I'm not sure if I'd recommend it because I'm just trying to figure this stuff out myself here too. Feel free to do so, though. You'll have to enable the pose search plugin as well. But we're going to be needing to add the character movement trajectory component to the third-person character blueprint. And, well, they have a bit of some stuff provided here. I think just going to follow along with some of it, and let's see if we can get something drawing onto the screen first. There we go, character movement trajectory, that's what it's called. And bear with me, I'm trying to reorganize some tabs here so that I can both keep an eye on chat for this stream and keep this window open. Okay, cool. So I have that fixed on my other monitor, and now let's drag this in and look and see what settings it has. So there are I believe I grabbed the wrong thing. Yes, I grabbed the character movement component instead of the character movement trajectory. Okay. So there does not seem to be very much here. But of course I have to click on it over there, not in the blueprint graph. My bad. And we're going to enable debug draw trajectory. And that is going to well, I guess those are just showing us some console commands to we'll have to keep those in mind. We might have to run some of those to get it to show up. It is an experimental plugin, so I'm sure many features will be added and changed as time goes on. So now I'm going to grab a tick. I'm going to get the trajectory. And I'm going to promote this to a variable and name it trajectory, and I'm going to set it each tick. And I want to see if we can get it, if it's going to draw. Yes, it is. Awesome. So the last time I briefly looked at the trajectory component in early access, and gosh, this is really cool. I could not get it to draw anything onto this screen. And it looks like, well, that is working now. Oh, is it even put the, it's not, looks like it's not motion matching or drawing the trajectory for the jumps, but it is filling in those points once I've landed, which means that we could motion match into landing animations if you were to have a sequence that's a jump and land combined. Maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't. But and these two arrows, the blue and the yellow arrow, are not part of the trajectory. They are debug arrows I have drawing out of the animation blueprint that I was working in the previous stream. And the blue arrow is acceleration, the yellow is velocity. I'm just using a draw debug arrow node and plugging in the x and y of the velocity and acceleration variables into the vector inputs of those nodes. And then I'm also subtracting the capital half height of the character from the z of the input vector so that these draw on the ground instead of at the character's pelvis. So there's no sense really continuing to just mess with the arrow keys. Let's keep going. So next there's a section that talks about the code. I'm going to skip past that for now. And I'm going to go ahead and move over to the next page that I linked, the creating one titled Creating a Runnable Pose Search Project. So again, you'll need to have the Pose Search plugin enabled for to make use of a lot of what we're going to be doing here in just a moment. So let's go into our character, mannequin, animations folder, and I'm going to create I'm used to talking as like let's go do this or that because I'm used to talking that way for videos, even if I'm just streaming myself right now. So it looks like we're creating a data asset. It's been a while since I've created a data asset. I think it's in miscellaneous. It's been too long. Yep, there we go. And for our type, we are going to create, let's see here, 2 types. We're going to do 2 of these, a pose search database and a pose search schema. So I'm just going to type pose search. I guess that's odd. Maybe I don't have pose search enabled for this. Maybe that was a different project. Yep, my bad. Pose search was not enabled. So I'll go ahead and restart that. Okay, so now let's create that data asset. Or, well, those 2 data assets. So I'll create a pose search database, and I'm going to name it pose search database, and I'll try to figure out some actual better naming conventions later on for this project. And now let's create the pose search schema. And I have worked a little bit with, what was the name of the plugin? There's a motion matching plugin on the Unreal Engine Marketplace, and for some reason the name has completely escaped my memory. Motion Symphony, that's it. I'm working with a team on another project, and we got that plugin, and so I've worked with it a little bit, though we haven't used it much thus far. So I am somewhat familiar with the setup process. It seems like, from what I've seen so far, the motion matching setup in Unreal Engine is very similar. So miscellaneous, data asset, and we're going to create a pose search schema. And name it pose search schema. Next. Let's see here. So you need to use animations. Ooh, this is interesting. This is really interesting. I've never heard of this before. So I'm going to read straight from the article. The grammar isn't perfect. It's being translated from Chinese by Google Translate, but I'm going to read it as is on the page. Import animation resources. I used the animation resources in the mall here, which I'm going to assume is referring to the marketplace, and Google Translate translated that to mall. The animation resources must have root bone motion. Here's the interesting part. If you don't have any resources at hand, you can use and there's an untranslated word. Or I said the, but the isn't actually on there. So you can use, or it is after the untranslated word, so I have no idea what that would be. But you can use the Ubisoft open source animation library mentioned later, which maybe I'm just out of the loop, but I did not know that Ubisoft had an open source animation library. and I'm definitely going to download those animations during this stream or after it. For now, I'm going to try to make do with the Lyra stuff, but if I do an actual video on motion matching, I'll definitely take a look at that open source library. But I'm planning to use the Lyra animations, the unarmed ones in this stream, which I have in this folder. So, from what I've seen, there haven't been not many people have covered this, and I do not know the answer to that question. I know it's possible to feed it motion clip data, and that's what I'm going to try to do. I've seen people with some success feeding it motion clip data over on, if you just search motion matching in Unreal Engine 5 on Twitter, you can find some people who've been feeding it with clip data and have been getting some pretty good results, better than what I'd expect. With motion matching, you're always going to get better results if you actually feed it motion capture animations that are longer and that are made with the intent of being used with motion matching. But I know that certainly isn't a possibility for everyone. It's definitely not a possibility for me right now, so I'm going to see how far I can get with the Lyra animations. But it does, according to this page here, there is an open source library of animations that were made by Ubisoft, so those might be suitable for creating a basic motion matching locomotion setup. So I imported these, but it did not adjust to the right skeleton, so I forgot about this, or I would have tried to I've made time before the stream to click through the ones that I haven't clicked through yet to just tell them to use the skeleton. Oh, whoops, I did the wrong thing there. Can I undo? Alright, well that's fine. We're not going to use that one anyway. I'll fix it later. And I'm going to skip the other... I'll do the... Yeah, if I, for some reason, need to use that animation this stream, I'll retarget it. Or I'll delete the UE4 mannequin out of the project and tell it to use the skeleton. I also saw someone on Twitter who had replaced the regular animations in the third-person animation blueprint just with a quick search before I started the stream with motion matching, apparently, and it looked just like the regular third-person setup. So it seems like you can put in animation clips and get the same results, or well, better results maybe even than what you might get with an animation blueprint with those same clips. I'm not sure. I am just speaking about what I've seen. Now we're going to test it today during the stream, or at least get as far as we can in the next hour, 30 minutes or so. And I did not speak clearly just now, an hour and 30 minutes or so. We're definitely not, we're not, this is going to be, this stream's going to be about 2 hours long, just like the others. I got a bit of a late start, so I'm not sure how long I've been streaming. 26 minutes, okay. Because I have to look over at the other screen and not the clock in my taskbar. Alright, how many more animations do I have to click through? Really wish I would have done this before the stream. Okay, not a whole lot. I think we can get this done within the next minute. And then we can move on from the tedious skeleton selection stuff to the tedious motion matching setup stuff. But at least that'll be more interesting to slightly more interesting to do and watch than me selecting skeletons. Also, I'm curious whether or not any of you guys watching this stream here have an opinion on the new thumbnail format I've been using for this stream and the most recent video on the channel. The one covering the Lyra locomotion setup. There are some things I don't like about it, but it's much. I think it's much better than the original one, which is something I just threw together. Ah, that's a good suggestion. Let's see here. Now, I know there's a way to open multiple animations at once in multiple tabs. I know by default it tries to open them into the same tab. And I'm not sure what the method is of forcing it to open animations in other new tabs when they are the same skeleton. Ah, but there's a find skeleton option. Is that? No, that doesn't do anything. Nope, I'm just gonna apologize again here, guys, for forgetting to do this before the stream. Almost there, though. So I'll try the shift control and double click. Looks like that's not working here, so it's stopping to make me select a skeleton for the first one it opened. So now I will try the right click and open in new window. I don't know how I missed that the first time. There we go. That makes this a lot easier. Thanks for that tip. There we go. I'm just going to select and save all of these. And I'm going to ignore those error messages because it did save. I'm not sure what. Yeah, hopefully things are all right. And let's see. I'm going to go ahead and just I just won't use the crouch animations here. So I'm going to move my content browser. I'll just close out of my content browser. I don't need it to be docked right now. Okay, so now let's open up the pose search database. We're going to add our pose search schema. And I'm reading through the article now. And whenever I hold my mouse over, it shows me the Chinese, which is making it difficult. So if there are animation resources, right now. So open the database, set the schema, click the plus sign to the right of sequences, and add each resources imported in the previous step. If there are in animation resources, add in, and search for animations in the motion matching node in the animation blueprint in the future. Frame time is searched from these animations. Pose search database has a lot of parameter settings, including an extremely important weight adjustment. Okay, so let's add our sequences. Okay, so the way motion matching will usually, or this plugin works, I think Motion Symphony did something similar, though you have to do it through a bit of a different UI. There's a bit of a different process with that. Can I dock this tab over here? No. I forget that there's a content drawer here. So there is a loop animation, a sequence, a lead-in sequence, and a follow-up sequence. So you have your animation sequence, the sequence that comes before, and the sequence that comes after. So here's what I am going to try first. I'm going to go to the animations, and I'm going to find my loop animation. Alright, my cycle, and my jog forward. So now we're going to have to keep track of a lot of stuff here because we're going to need... So there are two approaches. I guess I'll try the easier approach, which would be just start, loop, stop. Start, loop, pivot, loop for... So start, loop, stop, and loop, pivot, loop for each direction. And I'll see if that works. So, yeah, let's try that. So and I'm curious to see how it tries to deal with going in between cardinal directions. I'd like to see if it doesn't glitch out, we could apply orientation warping onto the motion matching, but if it does, then we might have to just do this with a standard locomotion setup and then without strafing, and then look into Ubisoft's library mentioned in the article. So let's start with unarmed jog forward as our sequence. It would be preceded by jog forward start, so the lead in sequence, and jog forward stop. And we want to loop this animation here. And now we're going to do the same for the other directions. So we are going to do... Actually, first, let's do our pivot. So let's get our loop. Or let's get our pivot, then we'll do our leading in animation. So let's get jog, pivot, unarmed pivot. Where are the pivots? There we go. So there's pivot right, there's forward pivot. And so is that... Yeah, that's starting from forward. Cool. So let's do this would be our sequence. Our lead in animation would be unarmed jog forward. And then we would do unarmed jog backward. And now we'll do the same for right. And I want to make sure I did this correctly up here. So we have jog forward pivot, leading in we have jog forward, leading out, and following up we have jog backwards. So that's right, jog right, jog start, jog right, stop. Yeah, okay. I thought I put in for a moment there, I thought I put in a incorrect animation. So that's forward and forward pivot. That's right and right pivot. So now we're on to left. Or no, let's do backwards. And I forgot to copy that. And now we'll do backward pivot. Now we'll do left. Okay. And I want to double check. Yeah, it leads into jog left. So I will go ahead and save that. And now we're going to open the schema. Looks like. And on the topic of motion matching, I just figured I'd share that Ryan, you might know him as the moderator of the Outcast as a moderator in the Outcast Dev School Discord server. Him and I are also on a team working on a game together, but he has been working on locomotion stuff for that game for a really long time. A lot of some of the previous stuff I was doing before Lyra came out in the locomotion streams was lots of stuff that he had shown me that he had set up in his distance matching system, what I was doing with the distance matching streams. But anyway, he actually just purchased a motion capture suit. Which one was it? It was one of the Exons suits. And he is planning on making animations for motion matching with that suit and putting them up on the Unreal Engine marketplace. And I just wanted to share that with you guys because he's been working with just animations for a long time from different packs, editing them and working with them and building out a locomotion system for a while now. And together we've seen a lot of things that noticed a lot of things with some of the other packs that well, he'd like to improve on. But then also there isn't a motion matching animation pack in the marketplace, and so he is planning on making those. So I guess if you have any specific requests for what that pack what those packs might contain, you should get those to him. And he's in the Discord, so you can find him there. And I was just checking that ping on Discord to see if it was stream related. And it's not, so I will check back in on that and respond to it later. So, okay. So we have our schema. And I need to get into the correct tab. Okay. So we're going to start the matching with 2 bones. We're going to select our mannequin skeleton. Let's see here. And we're going to just focus on the feet. I'll try the hands later. I want to try the hands, but the article is only using the feet, so I'm going to try just doing it with the feet. Looks like the UI is a bit different from early access here. When this, I think that was when this article was written. So let's see. Maybe not. The use velocity and positions is have just been moved. No, because those are up there too. So I'm not sure why they aren't showing up for these, but I'll leave that be because I guess it would be redundant if you have both settings there. So it would make sense that they'd move or get rid of those extra settings. So I'll leave I'm adding 1 index to post sample times. I'm leaving that on 0, just because that's the way it is in the screenshot I'm looking at. And I'm going to add in 6 trajectory sample times. We're going to sample at -0.1, 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4. So now we're going to go back, we're going to save this, go back to the third person character blueprint. So content, characters, nope, not content, third person, blueprints, third person character. And we're going to select this character movement trajectory, and they're saying to set the sample rate to 10. And now, let's see here. I'm gonna open up Lyra and, or no, if I need to open up Lyra and see what their default animation, what their default character movement values are, but for now I'm gonna leave them on the defaults for just the defaults here. And now they're saying to take this get trajectory node and put it through a flattened trajectory 2D. And then make trajectory relative to component. And I'm not, maybe I have to drag up from the mesh for that. No. So I won't worry about that third node. And I'm just gonna, yeah, just gonna compile this and move on. And now I'm going to go into, I'm actually going to select the mesh and set the animation blueprint back to the regular third person character animation blueprint. Let's see. What was that one called? Mannequin base, I think. So now I'm going to go ahead and open that blueprint up, and I'm used to tabbing back over into the level to get to the content browser. I need to get rid of that habit and just open it up from whatever, from whichever tab I'm in. So there's characters, mannequins, animations, mannequin base. Okay, so Let's get a motion matching node. We're going to select our post search database, and we are going to go to our event graph, and oh, this is not the regular one. This is the one I made. So let me find another one that I made. So do I have the regular one? Did I delete it? If I did, I can use the one I put together. I'll just have to change it up a bit. Oh, yeah. Here, I remember. It's Animation Blueprint Banyan, Animation Blueprint Quinn. That's it. So now, I need to get back over to the other tab. So I'm going to go over to the event graph, and I'm going to add an event onto Event Blueprint Update Animation. I'm going to get to the character, which is only getting a type character, so I'm going to cast to third person character. And now I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to get the trajectory, that's right. So I'm going to get the trajectory from the cast, and I'm going to promote it to a variable. Motion matching trajectory. I'll connect those up. And I'm going to go back over into my third person character before I forget, and I'm going to set it to, I'll just set it to use the Manny skeletal mesh and the Manny animation blueprint. Compile and save that. Tab back over into Manny. Go over into, I'm not sure why I disconnected entry from idle at some point. I guess that was just done accidentally. Now back in the anim graph, I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to go into locomotion. And I'm going to go into walk/run. And I'm going to move this out of my way, and I'm going to take motion matching. I'm going to grab our database. I'm going to plug in our trajectory. And I'm going to turn on debug draw. I'm going to run it through inertialization. And I'm going to run it through pose history. After inertialization, I'm going to plug that into the output animation pose. So compile, and let's see what happens. An A pose, okay, that's fine. I wasn't expecting it to work after the first try. I'm going to go ahead, and I didn't copy that. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to not worry about things like idling. So it is not working at all. Let's see. So I'm scrolling back up through the article. I'm making sure I didn't miss any big steps. see why this would have an effect, but they made their trajectory public. I'm not sure why. So let's take another look at our post-search database. So we have our sequences, we have our sampling range, maybe that's it. Not sure. Wait. I'm going to scroll back up through this article here. Make sure I didn't miss any big steps with the post-search database and post-search schema. So they say that they're leaving those on the default, so I will do the same thing. And force loop root lock should be turned on in the animations. So let's see. Let's look at our schema here. So we're sampling at negative 0.1, 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. We're sampling the feet bones. We have time set to 0. That's the way they have it set in their article, so I'm going to leave that the way it is. I'll double check my animation sequences. Should all have force root lock enabled. Yep. But in these, I don't think it'll have an effect, but let's see. I'm going to open up all of these. And now, one by one, I'm going to turn off enable root motion, but keep force root lock turned on. Because that's the way they have their animation set up. I don't think it should have an effect, but there could be some sort of glitch where that is having an effect. And I'll see if there's any more, if there are any more debug options for drawing things to the screen. And I really hope I have the animation blueprint set correctly. I should have set that first, made sure that was set correctly first. Yeah, because it would have put me in idle if it was, so I bet that's the issue. It's always the simplest thing. I mean, I'm gonna continue to do this because I've already started it. Just to make sure absolutely everything matches the way it was done in the article. So I'm using animation blueprint Manny. And if I plug that main states in, it's going to idle by default. And it is idling by default. So, okay, that was not the issue. So we are using the correct blueprint. So let's look at this motion matching node. Is the cast succeeding? Let's see. It should be succeeding. I'm going to print a string to make sure it is succeeding and setting that trajectory. Yes. I'm pretty sure that I did. I will double check. In my post search database, yeah, I set my post search schema here, if that's what you're referring to. Were you referring to something else? Hmm. And this is the biggest difference here, but I didn't see this node. I'll go ahead and turn off strafing. I don't think that'll have any effect. Should have some strafing coverage, not full coverage, but some with the current setup. But and the other thing I guess I could try would be taking out the lead-in animations, seeing if that has... Yeah, that looked like that had an effect. So I wonder if it's because there's no lead-in for idle. I wonder. So if I undo that change, and I add idle to start to loop, and I could do loop to stop to idle. So I'd have to change all of these anyway, other than the pivot ones. So I'll open every other. So that's jog forward, jog right, jog backward. Okay, I'm gonna not worry about lead-in animations. I see, so each animation it plays, so I would have had to have created one where the start is the top animation up here and the stop is the top animation up here. That makes sense. So that's forward. That's a forward pivot. Okay. Okay. I understand this now, I think. So I'm just going to start a new array. So I'd have a forward start, a forward loop, a forward stop, a forward pivot, and we're just going to do this with forward animations. We're going to test it out that way first. So we're going to do and I did a typo. So we're going to do jog forward start. Our follow-up sequence will be jog forward, and then we'll do idle. And now we need to do jog forward. It's going to be preceded by start, and it is going to be followed by stop. Now we're going to have, we're going to have our stop. It's going to be preceded by our cycle, and it is going to be followed by idle. And I do not need this index right now. Yep, look at that. So maybe pivots would be useful for... So of course there's not coverage for some things here. Because we're just using our forward, start, and stop and loop animations. But that's easier to get starting and stopping than distance matching without foot sliding. So there are going to be a lot of settings to tweak. Like if I move too far, it doesn't have any, there are no like sharp turn animations. So you're going to need more than, ideally you'd want animations where you're turning. But yeah, the stop looks, yeah, look at that stop. I mean, my gosh. Alright, so I'm excited now. Let's do backwards. Let's just do backwards and go from there. And I will just not press the A or D keys and watch it break. So let's add 3 more of these plus 2 more for pivots. And now we're going to do jog. Nope, we gotta go in order here. Nope, I didn't copy it with backward instead of forward. So we're starting with jog backward start. Our lead-in sequence is our idle animation. Our follow-up sequence is our stop animation. And then we have our jog backward start. Nope, I'm sorry, our jog backward loop, which is preceded by start and followed by stop. Now we have our stop, which is preceded by our loop and followed by our idle animation. And now we have our jog, let's do forward pivot, which would be, I put that in the wrong one. our jog forward pivot, which would be preceded by our jog forward animation and followed by our jog backward animation. Next, we'd have our jog backward pivot, which is preceded by our jog backward animation and followed by our jog forward animation. And now let's turn off orient rotation to movement. And let's use controller rotation yaw. We have pivoting, guys. We have pivoting. And it's just using forward. Going at angles, but it is having some trouble. So that would be a matter of wanting coverage for it'd be great if you could put in blend spaces. Of course, this isn't perfect. We're having some weird issues here. We are now going forward for way too long, and our stops are coming way too late. I don't know why that is. Like, once we're in the loop, it's like we can't stop. So let's take a look at this. Did I mess something up? So our third one should be jog forward stop. Our lead-in sequence is jog forward. Our follow-up sequence is idle. So I'm curious to see what happens if I create a second post-search database. I'll copy and paste it. And let's delete this. We're not going to delete the whole array. We are going to take in out to the lead-in and follow-up sequences and see what it looks like without them. Oh, actually, no. I think I noticed what the issue is, so we could try that, but I want to go back to our regular post-search database, and here where it says loop lead-in animation, we need to enable that when all of the lead-in animations are cycling animations. So that's not, that one should be checked. That one should not be. That one should be checked, and it is. That one should not be. So yeah, there's only 2 of them to check for this setup. And we still have that issue. So I'm going to make sure everything's set up here, right? We have our forward start, which goes into forward. We have our, I'm just reading this message here in chat. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that I'm finally taking a look at this because it was a whole lot easier to get, well, visual results to get things set up than I thought it would be. Of course, there's things that I'm dealing with right now, but it's a whole lot easier to start messing around with than I thought it would be. And it's working, whether it's coverage really well with the looped animations thus far, which is something I'm really, really excited about with this. So we have our forward stop, which is preceded by jog forward. We have to loop the lead-in animation. Okay, guys, I see how this is working now. I understand. So whenever there's a looping animation, we have to check this, which makes total sense. So each of these is going to have a looping animation in it. Oh, here's an issue. We have jog backward start, idle, jog backward stop. That was a mistake, I think. Yeah, because we are in forwards now. So yeah, this should be jog backward. You're right, it should be looping. I did not think about that. Great catch. So I want to double check my flow through all of these. So we are starting with our start. It's being preceded by idle, which should be looping, and it's being followed by our cycle, which is looping. Now we have forward, which is looping. It's being preceded by our start and followed by our stop. That works. We have our stop, which is being preceded by our idle and followed by preceded by our cycle and followed by our idle. We have our start, which is preceded by an idle and followed by a cycle. We have our loop, which is preceded by a start and followed by a stop. And we have our stop, which is preceded by a cycle and followed by an idle. Can I click on this successfully? Yes, I can. So now we have our pivots, which are both preceded by and followed by looping animations. And we're still having that same issue. This is really bugging me. So in this case, we'd be in a, we should be stopping, but instead we're looping. I'm wondering why that is. I can get myself to stop by going into a pivot and then stopping from that pivot. Is it going to stop on its own? Yes, this is just a stream. I'm trying to figure it out. As soon as I have it figured out, I'm making videos on this where I cover it in a much more comprehensible way, where I stop and I explain new concepts. This is just me streaming myself while I'm trying to figure it out so that you guys can come along with me for that journey. And as soon as I have it figured out, I'm going to be making videos on it, on the process, on setting it up that are just tutorial videos. I'll split it up into a series of videos, and the videos will be probably between, I'll aim for in between 10 and 20 minutes each, and make it its own little series on the channel. So why aren't we stopping? So there's our start. We'd probably be on our loop by now. And so we should be stopping there, but we're not. So let's take a look at where we have our stop animations. I mean, maybe it has to do with the sampling range, but before I look at this, I'm going to go back into that second post search database that I made. And I'm going to get rid of the lead-in sequences and the follow-up sequences. And I want to see what the effect of disabling those is. If you have the animation coverage, then yeah, it's just a locomotion system. So motion matching is, what is the best, simplest way to explain it? There are different types, but what all of them have in common when someone refers to motion matching, it is going to be essentially an animation system where you do not define. You can put motion matching inside certain states, so you don't have to not use states with motion matching. But what you're doing is you are just saying, this is the state where I'm moving around, something along those lines. And then and inside of that state, you just have a pool of animations, a pool of animation data. And the computer is figuring out which frames of which animations to play based on the trajectory of your character. That's the result of motion matching. The method of getting there, well, you have phase function neural network motion matching, just learned motion matching, algorithmic motion matching without any sort of neural networks or machine learning. There's so many different approaches and so many white papers on the subject on the internet. Unreal Engine is not implementing any sort of learned motion matching with neural networks. They're just probably going through with an algorithmic approach of just comparing poses and figuring out what the next pose should be by comparing trajectories and poses from the rest of the database. As far as performance and resources go, I do not know. Motion matching. So the thing about motion matching is that you have to provide it with enough coverage with your animations. If there's a trajectory where an animation doesn't line up that trajectory, you want to at least have something close, and you might want things like orientation warping being applied on top of it. If you can provide motion matching with the animations it needs, with the coverage it needs, it's always going to look better, in my opinion, than distance matching. And best case scenario, you have a bunch of motion capture animation data that you can just feed into it and have all the coverage you need in that data. And motion matching, when you feed it with motion capture data, you can get great results because it's not just playing the same loop over and over again, the same animation over and over again. You can have different pivoting animations. I really would just recommend looking up the different GDC talks done on motion matching after the stream, of course. Those were all done with longer animations that are just whole sessions captured as animations and then put into a motion matching system. What Unreal Engine's motion matching setup can do is it can take and cut up loopable shorter animation sequences, and you can achieve the same results with motion matching with these sequences as you can with distance matching pretty much. There should be pretty comparable, but there might be certain things, like I'm not sure how to address strafing and 45-degree angles or any angle that's not on an axis with this yet. I'm hoping that I can just run it through orientation warping after the fact, like you might run something else through. One way to do it might be to have a motion matching database for each cardinal direction and to match those separately. And there'd be so many ways to do this, especially when you can update animation nodes as they become assign functions to the updates of animation nodes that are relevant. It's insane the craziness you could get up to with this. But if you're providing the systems with the same animations, I'm not sure. You might be better off with distance matching depending on how much coverage you have in your animations. You might just really have to test it out and see how it works with your animations. I'm testing this out for the first time myself, so it might be pretty heavy in RAM, though an anim graph would need to have animations loaded in too, and I don't think it would be loading in animations as you switch states. I'm not familiar with the inner workings of this stuff, but I don't see why an anim graph wouldn't have that loaded in at the same time. So in my mind, it would be probably Could be more CPU intensive, though I'm not sure about that. I honestly don't know. The articles I linked, the person who wrote them does briefly touch on the code for the motion matching. They might mention some performance stuff there. I skipped past that to get to the next set of instructions for the live stream, because I didn't want to spend live stream minutes reading through and not doing anything. So you guys can definitely check those. They are, if you scroll up through chat, you should be able to find them. I'll post them in the Discord server as soon as the stream is over too, for you guys. And I'll post a link to the Discord server as well. And as far as the other question here about it working for a platform game, it's just a locomotion system like any other, like distance matching, like just putting some loops into a blend space. It's just a means to an end of having a character that can move around. A platformer would include a lot of jumping, and I'm not sure what this motion matching system's capabilities are with jumping yet, so I'm not sure if I do have a good answer to your question. This is new stuff to me too. I'm learning it just as much as you guys are right now. I'm just familiar with it on a conceptual level by just looking through, reading through previous articles on the topic of motion matching in general, watching previous talks done on it, that kind of stuff. So we have our jog forward start, our jog forward stop, our jog backward start, our jog backward, and our jog backward stop. We have our jog forward pivot and our jog backward pivot. So I want to select this as my database, and I want to see what happens. We still are not stopping on time. Yeah, we're getting more issues this time than we were last time. That is certain. Though also, guys, what I was saying about RAM and stuff, don't take my word for it, because don't know. I'm guessing. I'm not guessing, I'm estimating. So I could be completely wrong. I'm not an expert on motion matching, and I definitely don't know any of the details of its implementation in Unreal Engine 5. So we are not stopping. But shouldn't we already be blending into an idle if we're stopped? Would that be a problem with... I wonder if I tell it, if I give it an idle, will that help? So let's add an animation on here, a sequence, and that sequence is going to be our idle. And I'm going to navigate to the sequence. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to make sure it is, yeah, force root block. I don't think that'll have an effect, but with idles in here, will that help? Not really. So I feel like the other one was better, and this one is having the same issues, so I'm going to go back to it, I guess. I just really wish I knew what the problem was. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of... I'll leave idle in here, but I'm going to get rid of the backward stuff. And just leave the forward and the idle stuff in here. And we crashed, so I'll go ahead and restart. So yeah, motion matching is definitely more complicated under the hood. Can be more complicated under the hood, but in terms of for how complicated it is for the designer, it's much easier, because if you have a bunch of animation coverage and data, you can just throw that in and have the engine figure out what the heck to do with it. And you don't have to set up all sorts of states and logic for transitioning between things like start, stops, pivots, all of that kind of stuff. So what I think I'm going to try, I'm going to go over into the mini animation blueprint. I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to plug in all this stuff, and I'm going to let the idle be its own separate state. And it's blending in a little soon for my tastes. So let's, how long is that blend? That blend is 0.3. Let's do 0.1. And let's tell it to do an inertialized blend. And let's do 0.1. So now motion matching is covering my movement while I'm moving. And we're getting instances where we're jumping to idle, so maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we don't do it this way. Let's stick to doing it this way, I think. For now, I'd like to try to have idle as part of the motion matching states, and I'm going to try to get back to the point using this post-search database 2 asset where we were able to stop and enter idle without issue. And I think that was when, so we have a jog forward start, a jog forward stop. I'm going to take backwards out. And the pivot's out. This should be, so we have start, forward, and stop. Let's also add in idle. And let's see how that, let's see what that looks like. Let's make sure we have post search database 2 selected. And let's add our, we have the same problem we had earlier. What was the issue and how did I solve that? It made sense in retrospect. Maybe it was the lead-in sequences. So let's add those back in. Let's do idle. Let's do jog forward. This should be looped. Let's do start and let's do stop. And now let's do yep. That would explain it. Thanks. I did not notice that I had accidentally disconnected that. And I'm going to still go ahead and put in the lead-in and follow-up sequences because I think it looked better with them. So we have jog forward, stop. So jog forward, idle, Yeah, I don't understand why it's not stopping. It stopped at the beginning, which is why I don't understand why it's not. Let me go back and I'm gonna go back into the third person blueprints, third person character. I'm gonna set use controller rotation yaw to false, and character movement I'm going to set orient rotation to movement to true. And we have the same problem, but this should be set up the same way it was set up before when we were stopping, or in a very similar manner. So I'm wondering what the issue is here. It's not with the prediction because we were stopped. Is it not skipping through the animation? Is it waiting till it gets to the end of an animation before it stops? Because it is stopping, it's just stopping really, really late. It's stopping repeatedly, so yeah, that should be looped. An idle should be followed by, let's do a start, and that a lead-in animation should not exist, and it should be followed by a start. Actually, yeah, lead-in animation should be a stop. Let's see if that has an effect here. No, we're just running continuously. Okay, so I'm gonna go back again, and I am open to suggestions, everyone, on what could be causing its inability to get out of the loops, or that loop. So even with no follow-up animations, so what it's doing now is I don't even know if it's playing it's playing the full loop here. It's only playing part of the loop over and over again, it looks like. You can really tell. But if I start turning here, it starts going. There are lots and lots of settings for this stuff, and it could just be that we need to tune some of those. But this is bothering me right now, so I'm going to just see if making the loop being followed by, and if I just fill that whole thing up with loops, now it's still not playing the whole animation. So there are going to be lots of settings to look at, lots of settings to tweak. But and I want to come back around and look at this with animation. Oh gosh, I had a yawn there. Animations that are just standard looping, cycling animations made for regular locomotion. But what I want to try this stream, we have about 20 minutes left here. And what I really want to try is, they said that the Ubisoft had some animations that they'd be linked. So they're in BVH format. Okay, so they have their data set for their robust motion in-betweening. This is all in BVH format. So I'll look into getting this processed through Blender and a workflow for that to get that into Unreal, but I'm not going to look into that more during this stream. That'll take too long and I won't be able to figure that out in time. Let's see here. So what's bothering me is that there's a point where it worked, when just being able to move forward where we stopped when we needed to stop, and it's crashing. It's an experimental plugin, so that's why it's so unstable, guys. And we could just be encountering a bug with the plugin too. That's just the nature of something being in such an early stage of development. Let's see here. So I'm going to take idle out. I didn't have that in the beginning. Jeez. It's crashing whenever I take idle out. Wow. Yeah. I'm familiar with property matrix somewhat. I don't use it as much as I should, though. So I guess I'm going to leave idle in post search database 2 and see if I have better luck with post search database 1. And, I'm just going to delete everything out of this one. I'm going to open up. I was trying to do my own thing here, but I'm just going to look at the animations that this person has. They have a loop, it looks like. So, okay, some interesting stuff here. So, let's see. That's the wrong one. So, unarmed, jog forward. Let's just put in jog forward. I forgot to copy that again. So let's do forward. Let's do start. Let's do stop. Let's set forward to loop, and then let's make sure we're doing, I was using the regular idle. Let's do the unarmed idle ready. I think they're the exact same pose, but if I'm wrong, and we'll need to make sure we're using post search database now. So we're playing our idle animation. We just started. That was a better stop. A much better stop. So I'm wondering if it just doesn't want to break up the animation enough. If it's having trouble finding a point to get out of the loop into the stop animation. So I'm going to go characters, mannequins, animations. Let's see. Let's do Manny. And let's paste. Let's open each of these animations. And let's make sure root motion is enabled. In that article they had it disabled, but I think it needs to be enabled. I mean, it could be that, and we're using in-place locomotion with motion matching. I'm curious to see what would happen if we turn off. No, I'm going to keep this as in place. You could do this with the root motion setup too, though. We're not using in-place animation. So, yeah, I think it has. I'm going to take a look at the schema. So, sample rate. Let's try. What's the default? Let's try 30. Let's just try a different number there and see what effect that has. Okay, you can see it stuttering a bit because it's has the same looping animation over and over again, and it looks like it's not playing it all the way through. So I'm not seeing much of a visual change there. I'm not sure exactly what effect pose sample times has. I'll try a different data preprocessor just to see what effect that has. I'm not noticing one. I'm setting that back to its default value. And let's add some more times onto here. 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1, 0, negative 0.1, negative 0.2, negative 0.3, negative 0.4. My theory that is if it has more time points to sample from, that the stops might. That's an issue. 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1, 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. Why would that have broken it? That seems to have broken it. So if I set it back to what it was set to originally, will that fix it? Or did something else break it? Now that fixes it. So never mind that. That seemed to break it, so I'm gonna add hand left and hand right onto this and see if that fixes some of the stuttering at all. No. So at this point, everyone, I'm just trying different settings just to see where, just to see what sort of effects those settings have. So I'm going to try inertializing it after pose history. I'm going to see what difference that has. I flip that back around. I'm not noticing much of a difference. And inertialization is a more accurate reflection of the actual pose. So now let's look at, let's see, let's enable dynamic play rate and see what happens. And let's also turn on debug draw for that. Time in seconds to blend out to the new pose. Uses initial blending, requires inertialization node after this node. So let's set that to 0. And now you can really see the stutter now that it's not blending. That's very interesting. So does it, I mean, the trajectory is, I want to just take a look at this trajectory. Turning off play rate settings, turning off debug draw. And, so this should just be the, no, it's still debug drawing. Let's look at pose history. The maximum amount of poses that can be stored. Let's do 512, and that is where it would take more RAM, keeping track of those poses. And let's see if that has an effect. And I wonder if we just give it more or less braking friction. Okay, braking friction is on 0 because we're using it separate. Let's turn off use separate braking friction. Yeah, no effect. But let's make it take a longer time to stop. So let us go back over into here and let's use a separate braking friction 0. Okay, that's fine. And let's look for deceleration walking and set it to 512. It's a much slower stop, but it's not playing the stop animation as soon as I would like it to. And it is using post search database. Oh, not trying to open up in Visual Studio. And now this is all freezing up. Okay. So let's go back over into, where did I put the post search? Keep going in the wrong mannequin folder, that's why. We're using post search database 2 or post search database. We should be using post search database because post search database 2 was, and I already had that open in the tab. Okay. So jog forward, start, jog forward, stop. For stop, I'm just going to give it a lead-in sequence of jog forward. All right, I'm not sure. I think coverage is an issue, but it should be stopping it. What bothers me is that it stopped at the beginning, and I wouldn't be obsessing over this so much. I'd be trying to put more animations in and seeing if, but it's just that it stopped perfectly at the start. That is what is bothering me so much about this right now. takes that long to stop. Okay, so I'm going to go to the post search database and I'm going to take idle out. And okay, so taking a pose out of the database seems to crash it. It is an experimental plugin, so it could be a glitch, and it could be, I just don't know. I want to figure this out, though. I know other people have figured it out, so I know it can be figured out, that it isn't super broken or anything like that. But it's been about 2 hours here for the stream, and at this point, I'm just stuck, and the next steps I'm going to take are to look at what I can find from other people's implementations with this, what little I can find, and I'm going to try to take some time this next week to work with this some more, to try to figure out some more things. And I'll continue to stream the motion matching setup stuff until I'm confident enough to do some videos on it. I'll try to get the Ubisoft's library converted over into a format that can be used by Unreal. And between this stream and the next one, I'll try to schedule some time in for looking at that. So, thanks for watching the stream, guys. It's definitely easy enough for you guys to try to get started with this on your own too. So I'd love to see if any of you guys decide you want to try this stuff out. If you figure anything out that I haven't, I'd love to hear from you guys in the Discord. I'll go ahead and link the invite link. I'll send you guys the invite link now in the live stream chat. And again, thanks for watching the stream, and hopefully we'll be able to figure this out and get this working within the next stream or two. This will be it's really an awesome feature. I'm really excited to see where they take it from here, considering that it already has a lot of functionality, even if there are some bugs and crashes, and it's only in a very early beta, or it's not even in beta, it's an experimental plugin. So it's exciting stuff. I'm going to go ahead and end out the stream here, though. Thanks. You have a great day, too.